I'm exceedingly delighted to have you tune to NTV and to watch the fourth estate. My name is Chris Obore. I am sitting in for Charles Mwangusha Mpaji. He has some engagements. This evening, I'm going to engage you in discussing the UPC presidential elections. There are about 8 candidates. In the studio this evening, I have 3 of them. One of them is Julius Ochen. Julius, you're welcome to NTV.
Thank you very much. I'm Julius Ochen, one of the UPC presidential candidate. Today here to speak to the citizens of this country about this whole electoral process that we are going through as a UPC.
Thank you very much. And you have a man who's not new to these studios, Pool and Call David.
Yeah, good evening, viewers. And it's always a pleasure to be here, and this time on the Congress of the People.
Jimmy Akena, you're not new, Member of Parliament for the Ram Municipality, and second-time contestant for the UPC presidency. You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Chris. It is great to be back on NTV and also discussing matters of great importance like the future of the Uganda People's Congress.
Let me start with you. What are the issues keeping UPC out of power?
I would not say keeping it out of power per se, but UPC has been ravaged for a number of years. As you well know, we've been demonized for the last 30 years. Many of our members went through difficult times. Others were arrested. Others even lost their lives. But UPC has been able to weather all that storm, and the core, the belief, the ideal, or the dream of UPC continues to live on. So it is our challenge, I think, as this generation to try and find ways of how to revive that dream and to continue on the path or the purpose for which UPC was set up, and ensure that UPC can play a significant role in the development of Uganda and dealing with the needs of the people of Uganda. So as such, getting to power is going to be a path, but I thank the members who have kept the flame of UPC flying all along, despite the vilification, despite the demonization, despite the victimization. UPC continues to be a force in the politics, and the very fact that we're having this discussion is clear evidence that UPC, as much as people have wished it to go away, continues to be there and is on the path of renewal or in the rebuilding. And so UPC should be there for generations to come.
David, for a party that has been in power for all that twice, and now to stay out of power for 30 years, there must be a problem. What is that problem?
Yeah, there's a problem, absolutely. If you take from a scientific analog about matter, the definition about matter. Matter is anything with weight and which can occupy space. Now, Uganda People's Congress, therefore, is a political matter. Does it have the political weight? And has it been able to occupy spaces like LC1 up to State House? Because there are only 3 houses in Uganda. There's Uganda House, which is the headquarters of Uganda People's Congress, the August House, now chaired by Kadaga, and the State House. The rest are not houses. So where did UPC lose its political weight? Where did it lose its capacity to occupy spaces? And therefore, what should be done to regain that political weight? What should be done to take UPC into all these spaces, to occupy those spaces at LC1 up to State House? So therefore, some of the factors are being internal. Other factors are external to Uganda People's Congress. Some are self-inflicted. For example, after so many years of non-progressive leadership within Uganda People's Congress, resulting in social stagnation, political recession, I think now there's a reawakening within Uganda People's Congress. There's a rekindling of hope when you see the children and grandchildren of Uganda People's Congress named after their grandfathers, their mamas, their uncles, coming back and gaining interest in Uganda People's Congress. That's exactly what fires some of us, because there's a hope. So how do we move from challenge to hope? And I think that's what we are here discussing, and that's what my colleagues and I would like to offer the country. Now, therefore, when you look at, I don't know whether you like me to go into those internal factors.
We will get those internal factors. Let's hear from Julius Ochen. Julius, the two candidates are not new, at least to the public. Honorable Jim McKenna is a member of parliament and is fairly known. David Pulkol is fairly known, he's always in the media. The question here is, for a party that has been in power twice, and a party that had a lot of support, how come that 30 years down the road, it doesn't seem to have any clout to even win LOC seats before it aspires to go to State House? But to start from, the rest are known. Who are you briefly before you tell us why the party has stagnated? Who's Ochen?
Julius Ochen is a fellow citizen of this country. Julius Ochen was born 1975. Julius Ochen is a married man. Julius Ochen, by education, holds a bachelor's degree in international relations and diplomacy, and currently pursuing a master's degree in the same area. Julius Ochen has been in the politics of UPC right from the grassroots. I've been in council, and I've been the LC5 chairman for Amuria, where the implementation of government programs were held in this country. Julius Ochen, in this contest, is putting to the national platform the demands of the ordinary people of this country. You know, UPC is a party that plans for the interests of the ordinary people. The fact that I've been at the center of implementation of programs, activities, the delivery of service to the ordinary people on the ground, I have now come as a symbol of the ordinary people at the national platform to put the interests of ordinary citizens into the national arena. UPC as a party was deliberately kept out by the Museveni regime. You know, as soon as the NRM came to power, 1986, it quickly put an instrument number one that suffocated the operation of political parties in this country. In such a scenario, there was no way registered political parties in Uganda could get to the grassroots and continue to engage the citizens and continue to mobilize citizens all over the country to take up the mantle of demanding for accountability from their leadership and put what was required to be put to the right place.
Is that the only reason why UPC has not been vibrant? For instance, why is it that the FDC, that is relatively a newer party, has got a presence in many areas of this country, has got more members of parliament than the UPC and DP, maybe combined, yet it's a new party? That is an indication that even when the parties were in abeyance, the opposition tendencies remained. How come UPC has not been able to remain even a leading opposition party?
Of course, coming to that, I was coming to explain about when the regime in power currently imposed Article 267 that blocked, put a further nail into the operations of political parties in Uganda. That issue came in to second the first instrument number one that was imposed there. Now, when you come to the question why, for instance, Forum for Democratic Change and others have been able to move whatever the case, all political parties have gone through challenges. You know it very well. But I assure you, first of all, UPC as a party, right from the time the UPC government was overthrown, we had to run the party at the apex by the late president of the party, Dr. Paul Minton Oboti. And then the PPC Commission, the Presidential Policy Commission, took charge of that until we joined the democratic seeking forces to demand for the restoration of political parties in Uganda. That is when now we saw political parties beginning to move. But remember, NRM had played a very critical role of demonizing UPC. UPC was targeted from day one they came to power up to now. While the other political parties say, for instance, you saw how the Democratic Party got into board with the ruling government. Dr. Paul Kawanga Semogere became part of NRM. They assumed high responsibilities in the government. Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister of what you saw. Those who built a Forum for Democratic Change were all NRMs. They just worked from NRM to create what was called the PAFO, Reform Agenda and PAFO. And they were just working from somewhere, just like people are in the market. Then they agreed, let's walk to the other tree and take beer. That is how they came. They merged to form Forum for Democratic Change. But Uganda People's Congress and finally the Democratic Party had to start the journey by having themselves released from the center that they had been locked by the NRM regime, where they were not able to roll their activities to the grassroots. And that was a critical challenge why UPC was deliberately kept out of the scene of getting into active politics on the ground.
Is that a shared view, Honorable Kenna?
I can build slightly on what Julius has raised. And it is something which I think you need to take serious cognizance of the fact that the sort of situation and the conditions of opposition have somewhat varied. In that, in the period leading to 86 and immediately post 86, you are not dealing with tear gas. It was your life at stake. And in many areas, those who were targeted were the actual grassroots leaders. There are significant parts of Uganda where our branch chairmen, who are the leaders on the ground, lost their lives. Others spent several years in prison. And that was part of the process of, you can say, weakening or trying to break UPC. But the whole issue which is bringing us here is that the sort of condition which you're describing is not what should prevail going forward. And that is why some of us are in this race to try and see how can we rebuild this party, but not moving away from the ideals which made UPC what it was. And there are many challenges which are facing the country, which we really need a serious national debate on how we're going to deal with it as Uganda.
Before we go to that, David, do you share the view how UPC became very important politically?
I think there are a number of factors. Like I said, if you say external to UPC, the principle of individual merit is itself anti-organizational. Emphasis on the individual away from collective aggregation of our national interests pursued through a political party definitely ran counter to the principle of multipartism and therefore undermine that spirit generally in the country. And we are still trying to overcome the problem of the ghost of individual merit in our political parties at the moment, and therefore shift allegiance to the importance of aggregating our interests and pursuing our interests through organizations. So therefore, when cooperative societies were dismantled, now that was because UPC five fingers, the peasants, the workers, the youth, the women, and the intelligentsia all found a home in Uganda People's Congress to pursue their dreams, to rise and go as high and as far as their hard work and their God-given talent could take them. That's how UPC was organized. So from the peasants who were organized through cooperatives. The question
is, why did you
now,
be organized
when
NRM
now when the cooperatives, because now peasants were selling their produce through primary societies, which were also branches of UPC. And therefore, UPCs found themselves in the general assembly of most of these cooperatives. By dismantling, actually, the cooperative movement, selling the bank, selling what, and making them now indebted and so forth. So actually, NRM managed to dismantle the organizational capacity of one of the pillars that made UPC a strong pillar. The other part was...
you might have to read a new book written by Mzee Paul Erongot, who was the chairman of UPC,
chairman, managing director at
UCB, and the deputy managing director. He written a very good book about banking in Uganda. And some of the statements you are making, you might have to read this book to be precise, because the facts he has there are totally very illuminating and different.
Lovely.
Yes.
Okay, but what I'm telling you was that at parish level, there was a primary society.
David, the question I'm trying you to answer is, all of those existed. How come FDC has been able to have more people believing in them?
The point I'm making that if you see how trade unions were dismembered, our trade unions now in UPC, our cooperatives in UPC, the intelligences in UPC. Now, when you come down to the internal workings within the party, I've told you about failure within the leadership of UPC to take those principles and values and apply them to new realities and challenges of Uganda and priorities, and simplify its message and make its message more appealing to the people of Uganda. And also because of the internal workings within the party. For example, if you don't have branches that are functional up to village level, if you don't have a vibrant youth league,
other political parties in opposition more appealing than UPC.
If you don't have like FDC recently launched their policy statement.
Are other opposition parties more appealing to Uganda than UPC?
I think the charisma within which people like Kizza Besigye, for example, could mount a momentum and manage to get young people and excite women and children across the country, although it did not anchor that into branches, like what Mugisha Muntu leadership is trying to do. So it has a bearing, because it's about what charisma, what intellectual ideas, it's about what message you bring.
So UPC lost charismatic leaders,
I think, in my view, among other things.
Each of you...
And the communication...
Hold it there. Each of you contesting, the assumption that you will also contest in 2016 as president. We would like to know as a country your positions, for instance, on the economy, on the security in this country, and how do you intend to woo the UPC support back to the party? But let's go for a commercial break. Welcome back to the fourth estate. It is a UPC evening, and I have three candidates of Uganda People's Congress. Jimmy Akena, MP Lira Municipality, son of the father of the nation, as many others want to call Dr. Apollo Milton Obote, and David Pulkol from London School of Economics. He became a minister at 26 years.
I was also a lecturer in the university.
Also a lecturer at Makerere at what age?
The same age, yeah.
So you tasted the power at a very young age. Now, guys, at 35, you can't even get the first job.
Of Uganda People's Congress.
We have Julius Ochen.
Give me a scholarship.
Former chairman of C5 Amuria District. What else do I need to add?
Say career diplomat.
Career diplomat.
By training.
Professional diplomat.
Yeah.
Julius Ochen. If you became a UPC president, the assumption among the UPC supporters would be that you can become a contestant for the presidency, a national presidency. For you to convince Ugandans that you're a better president, you must have positions on issues that affect people. One of such issues is the economy. What is the UPC position and your own position on how Uganda's economy can be organized to benefit whether NRM, FDC, whoever, from the UPC perspective? How would you deal with the challenging issues of this economy?
First and foremost, as UPC, and most importantly as UPC president, when I'm elected, when I'm going through the bridge of this election, come on 30th May and 12th of July, when we are going to, those who cross the bridge on the 30th district conferences. The position that I will come and as Uganda People's Congress is that, one, we need to ask ourselves a question that currently our economy, how does it stand from where we are? Of course, everybody knows that it's about 30% of our economy which is inactive in this country. And then the other 70% of our economy is inactive. It's not all that very effective. What exactly do I mean here? What I mean here, you find in our economy, the estates are the ones that generating money, estate. And you talk about the service industry, and you talk about the other sector, this say the organizations like the MTN, and name them.
Telecom.
But yeah, the telecoms, communications companies. But the majority of Ugandans, which constitute 70 and above %, who are involved in agricultural sector, you know what that sector goes through in our country. That huge sector of our economy is not effective to, and is not contributing to our economy, national economy. And it is known very well in this country that during the UPC government in 1960s, immediately prior to independence, and the second UPC regime, the UPC government took a mantle to ensure that the largest population of this country who are involved in the agricultural sector were fully a bigger contributor into the economy through the cooperative movement. And that time, if you looked at the export of our country in terms of coffee, in terms of cotton, in terms of tea, in terms of dairy, whatever the case, you find that the UPC at that time was involving the entire economy, the entire population into the growth of the economy. And you find that the economy was booming. You could even at that time see that the services, the quality of services that were provided by the UPC government to the people of Uganda, to the citizens of Uganda, was of high quality. Unlike now, we are collecting trillions of shillings within the meager 30% of these other personals making a contribution to the economy.
What do you mean by high quality services?
What I mean by high quality services, if you went, let's take example for education sector. During the UPC time, we had a quality education in East Africa and Africa entirely. Makerere University was the Ivory Tower, was ranked among the best universities in Africa. The recent census on the performance of the universities across Africa, South Africa emerged among the best country with the 10 universities in Africa, being on top. I think Uganda was about 11, 12. That implies that something has gone wrong in that education sector. That time, you could also find the ordinary peasants were able to educate their children from the primary rural. By the time they go above O level, government would offer them free education. Unlike now, where you find that government has told the people of Uganda, we offer you UPE and US But when you go to the higher institutions of learning, tertiary and above, where you find education very expensive, it cannot be met by the poor, by the ordinary citizen. That UPC put at the center. You find that things are not okay. Assess the UP, the USC, there are a lot of gaps that do not indicate that there's quality service going to the people in that sector. Get to the health education, the health sector. In the health sector, you find the ordinary Ugandans that used to be at the center of Uganda People's Congress in terms of service that they deliver. Today are the majority that are escorted to the mortuary because the necessary requirements in terms of treatment cannot be afforded by them. And that's why the reason why you find most people who are well placed in government, who have the money, they have actually now the whole ward in Nairobi, which is being regarded as a ward for the elite in Uganda. And you remember when the late President Milton Obote was shot at Lugogo during the rally around the mouth, he was referred to Mulago. That's why I attended the treatment at that time.
You mean now there is a ward in Nairobi for dignitaries from Uganda?
I am telling you and the listeners all over the country, there is now a special ward in Nairobi where Ugandan dignitaries, the high class in Uganda, attended. It is even almost sparking riots in Nairobi because the citizens in Kenya are saying this is depriving us, the citizens of this country, opportunity to benefit.
We will get to you, Mr. Chen. David, do you have a counter view on how to deal with Uganda's economy from what your colleague is saying?
Of course, UPC is different from NRM. When you look at NRM, even just from the concept of economic growth alone. So, to NRM, economic growth is a means to an end, i.e., the economy must grow. That's where UPC and NRM agree. The economy must grow. But where we disagree is that the quality of that growth, the broad-basedness of that growth. But NRM does not mind if the economy is growing only in a few pockets. And in fact, even they like it that way. And then they can tax them with the view that then they use the taxes to provide UP and
how
so
are
forth.
you going to...
Listen, Chief, you did not interrupt him.
I just want us to know how we are going to
improve. That's exactly what I'm going to.
Yes.
And I think you need to be now fair to all. And the point I'm making here is that when you look at inclusive growth, broad-based growth, making sure that the majority of the population are participating in that economy, have equal opportunities of being active in that economy. And I think that's what my brother Julius Ochen has alluded to. That is UPC. UPC is about putting ordinary people at the center of your decision making. When you take this decision in government, will the majority of people be better off or worse off? Now, that is the point we are making here. If you look at what are the growth centers at the moment, telecommunication companies, which are extractive airtime and externalizing their profits, sending them abroad. Banks who do not lend to productive sectors because of risky. They buy treasury bills with high interest rates to finance government deficit. Then they go and play golf. At the end of the year, they declare huge profits. So exports are collapsing. How much are we exporting? How much are we earning? That's why the shilling, the quality of the shilling is falling. Although people are saying because American economy has picked up, but our economy itself is not exporting enough. It has become a supermarket economy. And therefore a consumer economy, consuming products that are produced by other people and are just opened here and here. So how much of our own manufactured, how much of our own agricultural products? So therefore, if I became the president of Uganda, all these supermarkets must declare to us who their contract farmers are. The meat that is eaten, that is bought there, the eggs that is sold there, the oranges, the juice that is sold there, the onions, everything that is sold there. Who are your contract farmers? And therefore, you must invest for you to get a license. You must invest in Uganda and therefore help us to evacuate that produce, and the excess you can package and help our people to export and access bigger markets abroad, if you're Uchumi or something like that.
What will happen to the trade treaties we have signed?
Because even the trade treaties say that, like Europe, exports all but arms. But what are we exporting? So you are actually helping Ugandans to export to those markets, to AGOA, to China. But now what do we have to export when we are not investing enough in agriculture? And that's our comparative advantage. Even before you go global, I will come with a policy of glocal, whereby you invest and occupy and dominate the regional economy in terms of our own comparative advantage in agriculture.
If they close their markets to you, how do you try?
Now, like South Sudan, like Tanzania, like Kenya, like Congo, like what? In terms of foodstuffs, is because our government is deliberately holding down investments in agriculture. So our government, by so doing, is now redistributing wealth from the majority of people to a few people. That's why you see the income inequality is growing. The Gini coefficient is growing. When this government came to power, it was like 0.40%. Now, it's only a tiny majority. The 20 top rich people are enjoying over 50% of our national income, while the last bottom 20% are enjoying only 6% of our national income. This is not good for the economy. It's not good for our politics. It's not good for national unity. And therefore, it is very important that we restructure our economy and therefore move more into production, move more into exports, and integrate our economy with the economies of the region, and invest in areas where our country has comparative advantage.
Jimmy, I want to hear your economic tricks. Because once you become a UPC president, you have to vie for the national presidency. And these are issues you must handle. What are the tricks in your pocket?
I would not call them tricks, because many of them are tried and tested formula, and the results have been seen. The only thing I want to bring us back one step is that UPC, the ideal is that we develop our economy, which leads to the improvement of the standard of living of the citizen. So that is the goal. You can get growth figures, but without a significant improvement in the standard of living. So whatever we're doing in what we're doing in the economy must lead to an improvement in the standard of living. My colleagues have touched on many aspects of what should be done. But truly, on the issue of comparative advantage, Uganda has a unique comparative advantage, especially in the area of agriculture. And when you look at our population, we have significant, over 80%, who rely directly on agriculture. The interventions which should come on the side of the state to assist and enhance on that comparative advantage are not being seen. One thing which should alarm the country is that the growth in agriculture is far less than the growth in population. For the last few years, the population growth has been over 2.2% higher than the growth in agriculture. So we're going to reach a point where Uganda, which is so blessed with rich soils, good rainfall, wonderful agricultural land, but we're going to become food inefficient, or we're not going to be self-sufficient as far as food is concerned. And that is going to be a crisis. And yet, we should be in a position to be feeding the region and beyond. And on that one, I can say where it has been tested. Some people can recall, there was a drought, severe drought in 1984, which affected many the Horn of Africa, Ethiopia, Sudan. World Food Program was buying a lot of the grainstuffs for distribution from Uganda. And at that stage, Uganda had just come out of the 9 years of the Amin regime, war going on, but we were producing surplus, which was supplying the World Food Program. So we should be gearing ourselves in that position. Other areas which are not registering what it should be, especially like the healthcare. Julius brought the issue of when my father was shot in Lugogo, he was treated in Mulago. I was born in Mulago when my father was head of state, my mother first lady. The facilities were there. At this moment, even where we're having a lot of these diseases, or like diabetes, high blood pressure, which often lead to kidney failure, You cannot get dialysis at all our regional referral hospitals. And those are sort of things which we should be able to provide the citizens with quality health care. Often, Ugandans are flown out for treatment. But in very many cases, you'll find that the doctor or the professionals who are going to deal with you, be it in Kenya, in South Africa, are Ugandans. So we need to also have a manpower development policy which will retain a lot of our talent. Or if necessary, if we, as a worst case scenario, at least some of these professionals who are actually doing these services in other parts of the world will be able at least to fly in and handle a number of operations rather than we taking one Ugandan for a treatment in Nairobi. I'd rather have the professionals coming back and putting at least something back in this, in the economy. So the whole concept of the economy is to benefit whom? Very often we talk about growth figures, but how does it translate in the significance of somebody's life or the improvement in the conditions of life? And those are matters which a UPC government will try to address, and those are matters where we need to really get into the significant debate. There was a point which was touched on as far as education is concerned, and I think I want to put some ballpark figures into it. We are putting in, officially it's supposed to be 10,000 shillings per student per year for UPE. I don't believe you can actually educate a child for 10,000 shillings per year. It should be
should be more.
It should be more than that one.
Yeah. On terms of
can I develop that one?
No, on interventions, you're going to interventions. But on that, one aspect of the economy is the revenue side. And taxes. If you read the book, the new book by Paul Romans, all of you are talking about the cooperative movement and the cooperative bank. In fact, he hints to the fact that led to the collapse of the cooperative bank. Some of them, of course, were external. I think some Americans went to put the money there and then demanded. The bank was closed when it was healthy. But he hints that there had already been a problem, a management crisis in the cooperative bank. That was affecting it. So I want you as a UPC president to tell us, if you want dialysis machines in Mulago, every regional referral hospital, tell us your revenue source. How are you going to bring revenue?
No. First of all, you have to look at what is the envelope which is available.
That's the question.
Now, the envelope which is available, you work from the basis of what is being raised now. And if you look at all the significant interventions which UPC did, it was on far less revenue. We were able to expand the health system by 80% without going into this huge borrowing which we're going through today, and provide quality services. So you don't need too much money to be able to give quality services, so long as you have a clear plan and your focus is for the improvement of the standard of living of the citizen. So UPC had demonstrated previously with the little resources being generated, because you often hear the boasting that UPC was collecting small, but with that little money, so much was done. With this larger package which we have, and putting the priorities which will touch on people's life, which will improve the quality of people's lives. Because I cannot run away from this issue of what you're saying, interventions. Any significant changes which we did in the economy, for example, like the education system, it is going to affect a generation later. UPE was started. When UPE, now the students out of UPE are coming out, we're having problems of where to fit them. We're having a crisis of the young people coming out of all these various institutions, and there's no jobs. So these planning and aspects have to be done in conjunction. And Uganda needs to be looking at where are we going to be in the next 10 years. And those are the sort of interventions which you need to do, especially in the education sector. The world as it is today, you are going to have to get more and more into IT. Now, what are we offering the child who does not have a classroom, a desk, even an exercise book to play in the significance of the world to come? So as Ugandans, or as, in fact I should say as Ugandans, we need to really look at this seriously and prepare ourselves and prepare the nation in order to be relevant in times to come.
That's a good view, Jimmy. But then, as leaders now from the opposition, each of you has given a view on how you tend to deal with the economy. There are two critical issues that you need to address before we end this show. One of them is, for instance, if I asked you, Julius Ochen, what would UPC lost power twice, and the logic and the reason being given is that while you talk about all the glamorous services and what, you were very weak on security. Security of the person and the property. How are you going to deal with issues of national security, internal and the global security threats in the country today? The other question would be, since you're campaigning on UPC ticket, what program do you have? Because FDC and NRM admittedly are full of UPC supporters. What magic do you have to pull them back to UPC? But let's come and address those two questions when we come from a commercial break. Welcome back. It is still the UPC debate. I have Honorable Jimmy Akena, Pool and Cole David, and Julius Ochen, all aspiring to be UPC presidential material. Who are others, Jimmy? You are 8?
We are 8.
I know Professor Edward Kakonge. I know Innocent Anyoti from Mbale.
David
young,
Innocent
vibrant
Nyote.
man.
Innocent Nyote.
Yes. Also about Wanduka from Mbale.
Sam.
Sam, who else?
Professor Dr. Bossa.
Ah, Professor
Mr. Bossa.
Is Mr. Bossa, the Secretary General of UPC.
And Honorable Benson Obua.
Ah, from Lira. When I was going for the break, there were two issues I raised.
Yeah.
One, UPC talks about the services and one, but it is all dependent on the security of the person and the property. And the UPC is faulted by NRM specifically of having failed to protect the security of person and property. Ochen has a UPC president. How do you tend to deal with security nationally and globally or regionally?
First and foremost, as a UPC party president, standing at the podium to in our planning rooms on security issues in Uganda and regionally and globally. First of all, security is a very broad concept, very broad. One, many people have been speaking, accusing Uganda People's Congress as being weak in that area. And what I would like to inform the citizens and members of Uganda People's Congress here in Uganda and other listeners outside Uganda is that as UPC, we may adopt that we had a challenge in managing our security. That one we cannot run away. We must say that we have a challenge, but that does not put NRM on top, because as we speak now, we have more security problems that NRM has failed to address. In its broader way.
The NRM has professionalized the army. The NRM, the soldiers today do not evoke fear from the citizens. The NRM has got engaged in other Pan-African security matters. This is not a mini task.
Actually, in that area, I would say, we can say NRM he has tried his best there to do something in that area. I think as Ugandans, we must come to a point, if the other political party has done something, we can say, okay, you have done something there, but we need to find a way how to improve much better than what you have done. So in the context of professionalizing the police, the army, and all the security agencies, we can say is much quite different from what we had as Uganda People's Congress. But there are areas, gray areas, which NRM as a regime has totally failed. First of all, we have a security of ordinary people today, whom, when they are in their homes, are not safe. My brother David Pulukolo was saying that they robbed his house last night. About a week ago, so many robberies have been taking place in Kampala, breaking into people's houses. That is a security issue which NRM has failed. If such a robbery is in the heart of the city, it means a lot that NRM has not done. Now, when you get to the area of food We have so many Ugandans who cannot have 2 meals a day. That's a security issue. And if the NRM does not address that particular issue, it cannot blame UPC. It must take wholesomely the blame, because many people are going without food. And if they are going without food, it becomes a trap. It becomes a grooming ground for even terrorism, because the hungry person can take any decision. That is a challenge that NRM has failed to address. The professional police, the professional army are not addressing the question of lack of food, where most households are not addressing. Cars are being broken in people's homes. Mirrors are being robbed in people's homes. That's a security matter. Leave alone that. Get to the children in the streets. Move along Kampala roads here. You find the children are in the streets. What does that explain? That is a security measure which NRM cannot blame on UPC. It must blame on themselves that they have failed. That did not happen at the time when UPC was in charge in this country. We never had such a situation which was so scandalous in the way it is. The situation of unemployment of the youth. We have a high percentage of unemployed youth today in our country. What does this symbolize in terms of security? We saw the crisis in the north of Africa. It was sparked by unemployed across in Libya, in Egypt, and other places. Today in Uganda, the NRM has failed totally to address the question of security, which is emanating because of unemployment affecting the young people. Now, that has been internal. Even if NRM is bragging, going on radios, whatever they can, accusing UPC for being toppled by the army, tries whatever they can. But of course, I am not ruling the external factors that played a hand at that time. I'm not ruling it. So you find that as much as we faltered somewhere, but NRM has faltered in all these areas I'm enumerating. So what exactly must we do? That is why I am bringing my leadership representing the ordinary Ugandans from the grassroots to take charge and be the leader, be the president that can stand and address these gaps that have been enumerated, so that we have no problem with the security in the country. This squarely must be tackled. It's not a question of saying you walk away, you accuse the other one. It is a question of saying this must be addressed. That is internal. When you get outside, the UPC position is that whether East Africa or Africa, it must put the interests of the ordinary people first. Recently, the problem in Burundi, my brother, in Burundi, it is the issue of governance failing to address the question that affects the ordinary people. Is the issue of faltering the interest of the ordinary people, and some people trying to project the interest of the few minority that want to perpetuate their presence in the government against the law of the country. This is the problem. So UPC would stand with the interests of the ordinary people in Burundi. And that is what UPC will champion while addressing the question of security. The same in South Sudan. The same in Somalia. The UPC position would be, or foreign policy, would be to address the issues that engulf the ordinary citizen in those countries in Africa. And that is how UPC would tackle the question of security at regional level. Even when you get globally, at a global scene, UPC will never waver away from the interests of the ordinary people. That is why the UPC government, the first and the second, put the ordinary citizen at the center. And it was a very reason UPC was very prosperous. It was a very reason UPC was overtaking many countries in Africa because of her policies. that are targeted on the ordinary people.
We'll get back to that. Jimmy, security, nationally, regionally, and globally. You become UPC president. You vie for national leadership. What is your way forward?
This is a topic which has often been brought about, and when it comes to UPC is often put in a position that we did not pay sufficient attention to security. I have a slightly different understanding on this matter, and this comes on the basis that where were UPC priorities and where were the resources? And this is a question which we can ask ourselves, in that when somebody needs medical services and cannot access those medical services, which causes loss of life, is that not a security issue, or is the loss of life out of different loss of life carries different significance? And UPC's weakness may have also been its strength, in that the little resources which are available, you now have a choice. Are you going to get ammunition, or you're going to buy medicines? And where UPC's track record has been as far as providing services to the citizen, UPC has excelled. But we also have to learn the lesson that regime survival is also an important aspect, in that should UPC have been able to continue with its development programs, Uganda would be significantly better than what it is today. So definitely we have learned from our lessons of security, but we should not shy away from the question that we are losing people because we don't have the medicines available. We have this issue of maternal deaths. We have children who do not, let's say a premature child, we don't have the facilities. All of those are citizens of Uganda who should have had an opportunity to live a life and contribute to Uganda. Their security should be important. So it's really a balancing act on how to be done. I accept the issue, and I think which has been raised. Yes, we have to look at, should a UPC government, when a UPC government is in place, we must sustain that government to continue to deliver on the key promises, which is to sustain the lives of the citizens of Uganda. We should not play it down, but we have lost a lot of people in that sort of environment. And sometimes I think we have not taken this issue of security in its proper context. I recall when I came from exile, I saw something which I had not seen. When you go and visited the camps which were there, and the situation which had been there for 20 years, you cannot call that a really secure situation where there was peace and stability. And the first course of action the moment I got elected was really to seek a solution and really try to get intervention, because first of all, we needed the peace. The 20 years of war which has affected northern and eastern Uganda, we needed that to end so that we can now start embark on a platform of development, a platform of engagement. So we need to look at security wholesome. If some corner of Uganda is at peace and another corner is not at peace, we have a problem, and we have to accept as Ugandans that this is all our country. And we need to work on the basis of how can we have a better country? Where can our resources be channeled, and how best can we look at it? I think also we need to avoid this using arms or force to deal with political contestations, where we have to reach a point of, let us battle with ideas. What idea is really going to help this country move to the next step? And that is the sort of politics which we need to be engaging. We need to have that debate in the country. How can we improve education? How can we improve health? How can we improve the economy? All these matters which I've raised. And security is a national issue. All of us as Ugandans want to be secure. So we need to embrace our country, embrace our differences, and differences in approach. But ultimately what we must seek is what is best for Uganda. And any loss of life, be it from lack of medicines or lack of opportunity, those losses are as significant as somebody who gets shot in his home or robbed or whatever. Every Ugandan life must be of value to us, and we must try our level best to ensure that each and every Ugandan has an opportunity to live a life and to reach their full potential.
David, he talks about property says people who have cars on loans find visitors coming at night removing mirrors. And to a chain, he said that is a security threat that NRM is not handling. You are the security expert of this panel, at least.
Yes.
What would be your position now?
I think what you have heard, what viewers have heard from my colleagues as UPC is that UPC has a broader view of security. So it's human security. Our view about national security is state security plus human security. When you read the UPC manifesto of 1961, you find that our founding fathers were talking about freedom. Their concept of freedom, which is security, was freedom from fear, that is oppression, physical harm, anything that harms citizens, as well as freedom from want. And that's why they came up with a fight against poverty, ignorance, and disease. So human security, therefore, is about security in terms of peace and health and justice in our homes, in our communities, in our country. For example, now you have peace in northern Uganda, in Teso, in Karamoja. Peace without justice, is it peace? Because to UPC, peace and justice are two sides of the same coin. Now, if, for example, you told people from Teso to move away from their homes and abandon their wealth into IDP camps, and you did not protect that property and their wealth, and now finally, when you take them back home, do you compensate them? Do they get justice? And therefore, is that peace sustainable or is it not sustainable? When you have many demobilized soldiers out there waiting to be paid their retirement benefits, and it does not come. At every elections, NRM says, fill the forms, open bank account, no money comes. 201, 206, 210. And now they say we shall put you in NADS. So you are not addressing the problem. So when you have that unemployment, for example, that you talked about, that's a ticking bomb in terms of putting youth into crime. So therefore, income security is security. Food security must be seen as security. Environmental security must be security. So we must have a broader view of security. Therefore, to a UPC government, we must put a bias in our expenditure, invest where the poor people are, and assist them to grow up. And as they grow, as those families are growing up economically, then that aggregate growth becomes the national growth. That's how you can maintain stability. That's how you can maintain security. Now, our government at the moment has emphasized on regime security. You know, state security, meaning the pillars of the state and the stability of the state, parliament, army, police, and so forth. That guarantee our security must be strong. But unfortunately, our government has put more resources into regime security, as opposed even to state security, as even opposed to citizen or human security that we have talked about here. So the point I'm making is that whereas Dr. Apollo Milton Obote had 1 battalion or 2 battalions as Presidential Protection Unit, Museveni has had not just a brigade, actually a full division.
It was 3 companies.
So it was 3 companies. Now, when you look at the expenditure that has gone to protecting one man and his family, whether in-laws or sons and in-laws or what and so forth, and the whaling vehicles, and then look at the convoy, whether of the First Lady, including toilet cars, dogs cars, and so forth in the convoy. So that investment, and then you find citizens being hit by Salimbwas. You find sheikhs being killed. You find, you know, ordinary people in the villages, people are suffering. So the state has taken its resources and protected itself and against the people. And then when you look at police brutality, you look at where the resources are going at the moment. So even diverting the police to do political games, political policing now, and policing opposition. And even yet it is legitimate opposition. So you find that resources that were meant for security, ordinary citizens, are being misused. Then when you go internationally or regionally, yes, I think our government has tried its best. But as it has intervened in the region, it has made also its own blunders. And therefore, when it goes unilaterally on hot pursuit, you find that it is winning us more enemies than friends. If you look at our partisan intervention in South Sudan at the moment against the Nuers. If you look at even recently, I saw some movement of troops into Congo, for example, I don't know whether we are not in Burundi. We need to investigate that as well. When you look at, yes, when we go to AMISOM, we go as part of a regional framework, as Africa, as IGAD. That's good. And we contribute to the regional objectives, regional stability, and so forth. Meaning that to UPC government, whereas we shall not abandon defending our people, but we must do it in such a way that going to war must be a last resort. And therefore, and in the use of our forces, it must be to service regional objectives as well as in partnership with others, and causing others who are our friends, whether from abroad or from within our region here, to work with them in such a way that we achieve our stability goals. But this business of thinking that we can pursue our national security by ourselves and not working with others, I think that will endanger our security.
Jimmy,
Chris, before you proceed, I wanted to add on what David had raised. Currently, the current regime has decided to isolate the UN veterans who were by then the soldiers under the UPC government. They have not been considered as part of those who are supposed to get their enumeration.
The UA, Uganda Army,
particularly those who worked under the UPC. They are being removed from the groups that are benefiting. What does that mean? It therefore means that the government is creating its own problem. Two, currently, there was recently a national consultative forum where citizens of this country arrived at Africana and came up with a report on electoral reform. But the way that government in power is handling issues that are similar to what is causing havoc in Burundi.
The politics of that.
Yeah, exactly. And other states in Africa. That one opens a fertile ground.
Before we get there, we may be told to leave this place, but we have to address this question, Jimmy. That brings you to your internal contestation. We wanted people to see who you are, because when you want to lead UPC, that is a public party. The public ought to judge you on the way you look at public issues, not mere politicking internally in your party. But now, the second question that all of you need to answer. How do you intend to woo back those supporters who have now become NRM cadres? And yet ideally, they were UPC. Some of them have become FDC cadres. Yet ideally, they were UPC. And how do you intend as a candidate, for instance, if you became a party president, to have UPC get that massive support it once enjoyed?
That is a task which I think anybody who wants to lead UPC must look at very, very seriously. And across board, we must approach it in the sense that my looking at it is really to rediscover our basis, our roots. And the unity which you can forge when you're united on a common purpose is where it is going to have a significant impact. Some of these arrangements which are made, or what in politics is normally called marriages of convenience, are not long-lasting and not durable. But if we must really get back to the purpose. Now, if I can convince somebody who's in NRM and say, for quality education, which is going to benefit generations of Ugandans, this is the better way. Come, let's work together for that basis. That is going to be some sort of unity which you can cut across.
We have been told time is over. How do you intend to do this?
Yeah, one is make sure that UPC is a formidable force by improving internal organization and our structures. Strengthen that, like I said, must occupy space, must have political weight. Two, in terms of our communication, we need to improve our communication both internally but also externally so that we appeal more to citizens. Three, issues of youth. These are lifeblood of any party. And therefore make UPC more attractive, more people to be more proud, happy to belong to UPC. And therefore rebranding of UPC. Increase more women, attract more women into UPC, and therefore have a very vibrant women's league, and also have a super campaign plan and strategy, and of course in terms of resourcing and support our retention, attracting young people as well as retaining them within UPC.
So, Ochen, how do you get back these people?
I think what is very, very, very important One, we need to do the rebuilding of the party. And doing that means that we must strengthen the structures of the party. That has been a very crucial challenge across all political parties. And by doing that, we are building strengths within the party. And then we need to consolidate national unity. And that is how we are going to push for this party. The other one, the question of rebranding. Take UPC as a party now. It has been demonized for quite a long period of time, 30 years. And we now need to do the rebranding and deliver UPC as a new product to the people of Uganda. And then we also need to safeguard the history of this party. Did quite a lot in the past. There is now a need for us to generate the lessons from what we did in the past and use it for making better plans now that can drive UPC from the current stage where it is at the moment so that it can move forward with the young generation. And that is why I bring myself to the national scene as being one of the youngest leaders among those that are contesting, that I can appeal to the young generation and women in this country.
Thank you very much, Jimmy. I'm surprised though that you're campaigning, but your campaigns are punctuated by accusations and counter-accusations of who are moles, who are not moles. Where did you get this kind of campaign? But I don't want to get to that because it will lose purpose for which you have discussed. The people have listened to you, and I'm sure UPC supporters have listened to you. And I wish all of you the best. Ugandans are the judges. Thank you very much for tuning to Fourth Estate. My name is Chris Obore. I've been standing in for Charles. David wants to say a lot more, but time here is always a big problem.
Well, the youth should be the heart to drive the UPC agenda forward, while the elders provide the brains and make sure that the values and principles of the party are inculcated among the young people. That's where our priority is.
Can you clear the air? My producer will kill me. Can you clear the air that he is Museveni mole?
Of course,
you work for Museveni.
Of course, I'm not a mole. I've never been a mole. I will not be a mole. Even when I worked under the NRM government, I was never a mole. Now, working with NRM government, many people in UPC work with NRM government. Bosa works with Bank of Uganda. His wife is still working the judiciary of government of Uganda. Walubiri works with Minister of Lands. Okello as Commissioner for Lands. Now, even Otunu admitted that when he was a Minister of Foreign Affairs, he gave a passport to Museveni for the peace talks. Now, there are so many people who have worked. Kakonge was the first Minister of Local Government under Museveni government. And when UPC chairmen were butchered. So I served the country called Uganda. I was not a domestic servant of Museveni, neither his houseboy.
Jimmy,
I've therefore contributed. And now I want to contribute. Of course, I've been a minister. I've been a member of parliament, national security, UNICEF, and so forth. But what I want to say is that I now want to serve my country in a different capacity. Okay. As president of Uganda People's Congress.
Maybe, Jimmy, this also is coming to you all the time. The question of your papers. Yesterday again it came like bushfire. Akena has no papers. Akena is not tree. It has to have A-level equivalent. Some are asking, how did you even become an MP without A-level equivalent?
I think those are wishful thinkers, hoping that they can knock me out through a technicality. That one will not happen.
But do you have the papers?
I definitely
Can you wave them in public?
I don't mind waving them, but they've been submitted where it's necessary. I will not be so brave to stand up and contest for parliament twice and to contest for UPC presidency twice without having the necessary papers. But the one issue I want to say here clearly is that I want to thank my colleagues who have supported me in this campaign because I'm a second-time runner for party presidency.
They're also saying that you are having an agreement with Museveni which is quiet. Like Pulukon.
No, but let us be honest. How much does it cost to have these meetings? I'm sure Julius has had those meetings. I've had those meetings. There's a lot of talk in the media about how much an MP earns. Now, in my campaign, we are 7 MPs, myself included. Do you not think we can raise a little bit of money to be able to hold these meetings? And then on top of that, I want to thank the UPC in the diaspora who have supported this campaign and friends across board. And there's even a city lawyer who I didn't even know was UPC, but told me that his father's will was that there's a portrait of my late father and the flag must always be in the sitting room. He gave me some support in the campaign. So this campaign it's moving along, and I thank my colleagues for it. I am UPC at heart, in mind, and in all ways possible, and I want to see UPC rise and shine again.
Thank you very much.
I think I want to tell the citizens of this country that most of us who are contesting and other people, there have actually been a lot of quarrels, as has been stated. But I would like to appeal to them that I think I will be in the right place to be the person that can reconcile this party when I'm given opportunity to be the leader.
Thank you very much for Team Supported State. See you next Sunday. Charles will be around.